Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
The new year is such a promise to eat better, do better, be better. Now, I don't know about you, but I overindulged over the holidays, and while I enjoyed every minute of it, the pressure to make changes, cut out sugar, increase my movement, and kickstart a new me is strong.
It's called dry January. You cut out all booze for the month, and, you can make exceptions, right? Like you got a wedding, you got a birthday,
It's Friday.
It's Tuesday. You take a pottery class.
The second Friday of every January is known as Quitter's Day. So if you've eaten celery for 14 straight days and then you've hit your limit and start swapping it out for cookies and Timbits, you're not alone. That's the message from our guest on Big Story today. Abbey Sharp is a Canadian dietitian and food blogger who promises no BS. She's also the host of her own podcast, Bite Back with Abbey Sharp. She's here to make us feel better about these unrealistic expectations we pile on ourselves every new year and how we can make healthy changes without driving ourselves crazy. Well, my first question to you is, do you make New Year's resolutions?
I hate the idea of a New Year's resolution. I kind of go into the new year with some general ideas of what I want to envision for the year. But they're in no way related to, what society kind of associates with this new year, new you mantra. Really for me, it's kind of just like a vision of just like overall the energy that I want to bring to the year, what I want to accomplish in more vague terms, just to really allow me the flexibility to kind of see the year through and to move with the times and adjust as needed.
Yeah, and I think that makes a little bit more sense and is probably why you might be able to keep those types of resolutions or those goals that you have to start the year off. But for many other people, January comes around and they start with such strict resolutions, sometimes very ambitious, unrealistic, especially when it comes to nutrition, right? Because we're going into that new year. We want to, eat healthy green juices. And we just came off that month of alcohol and sugary treats. So how can we now transition into really realistic and attainable goals?
Yeah. I always think it's really funny because I actually don't think that winter or January is even the best time for making these dramatic changes or forcing ourselves into restriction. Because when we look at nature, animals use this season to rest and restore and conserve energy and not to hustle for this arbitrary, quote unquote, better version of themselves. And I really just don't think it's helpful for anyone to be thinking about all or nothing terms where, December is all for going hog wild and living your best life. And then January comes along and it's all about pulling back and restricting. Not to mention, January is kind of the depressing time as it is. Why are we torturing ourselves with this? So I have always kind of told people, I don't believe that there is a point in taking on a health change or a goal if you cannot see yourself sustaining it for the rest of your life. So we really need to get out of this dichotomous thinking about food and exercise and health, because if we want to truly move the needle, we really have to think about behaviors that we can sustain longer than 2 weeks. So for most people, that means going a lot slower than, the diet culture and society tells them to at this time of year. Trying one thing at a time and then kind of getting into a good rhythm with it, getting into a good routine, and then building on that, adding something else, see how that feels. Try, if it's not working for you, you don't need to throw in the towel altogether. Just kind of gently pivot it into another direction. So I think ultimately focusing on nurturing habits that feel good to us rather than forcing us into these unsustainable changes just because the calendar flipped.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way that you mentioned it as well, is that we don't need to just do it because we feel like we have to or we've been told to do it. Make the changes because you want to and make changes that are suitable to you.
Correct.
And so and you also mentioned kind of, January is a bad time. You want to just kind of hibernate at this time of year. So are there often external factors that affect our success when it comes to making New Year's resolutions, or social factors that may affect us?
Absolutely. I mean, like there are social and, economic and environmental kind of roadblocks all year long, really. But, we, at least in Canada, like January's the pits. Like it's cold. We are less likely to want to incorporate those little kind of snack exercise snacks throughout the day to like walk to, go run an errand or to pick up our kids on foot rather than drive them everywhere. So there are just natural roadblocks here, not to mention a lot of us get back from the holidays and it's kind of, a very busy time for a lot of people at work. So I think that it's just generally a difficult time for people to even like feel the desire to want to move your body more, eat more fresh, local foods, because again, there's just not as much available. The farmers markets are closed. Like all of the health promoting behaviors that we associate with, whether it's weight loss or, improving some kind of metabolic marker, all of these things from exercise to diet are much harder to do in the winter time. So I think we need to be a little bit more empathetic and exercise some self-compassion here, that this is just a difficult time to take on a new kind of a new approach to your lifestyle.
Absolutely. And when you are taking on something new, like the dry January, right, where we're cutting out that alcohol for the entire month, or people cut out sugar for an entire month, is 1 month really enough to make a change within your body with something like no alcohol or no sugar? Or is this, supposed to kickstart you for something that you do every month?
So that's the often, how it's sold is, oh, this is, to kickstart your, you got to go all in, like, all or nothing, super extreme to just kind of like kickstart your health journey. The reality is our body does not like restriction. It does not like deprivation. It does not like denial. So when we put ourselves into this hyper state of restriction where we have no sugar, no carbs, no alcohol, whatever it is that brings us joy, we are going to fight tooth and nail to get back to our, homeostasis baseline. And so we actually don't see this as going to have any kind of long-term, benefit to our health or even our weight if weight loss is the desire. Because the moment you go back to eating normally, whether it's 2 weeks later, a week later, a month later, however long you're able to last in this kind of torture system, we are going to, we're going to put the weight back on. Our blood sugars are going to go back to the way they were. Our, cholesterol levels are going to go back to the way they were. Because ultimately, if we want to move the needle, we have to go low and slow. And I know that's not sexy. I know that doesn't make for like a great soundbite. It's not motivating because we like to see, fast changes. But that's not the way a human body works. And so it takes a lot longer for us to actually see, benefits. And that just means that we have to kind of go a little more gentle with ourselves. And kind of avoid these extreme fad diets that promise instant results.
Absolutely. And are there some fad diets that you have noticed or have seen out there that you would highly suggest people maybe stay away from and don't attempt when they're planning their resolutions or goals?
Yeah. I mean, really, like any of these detoxes and cleanses that ask you, suggest you're supposed to just like live on juices for a week or 10 days. Not sustainable. A, so expensive. B, like you're eventually going to want to chew something. It doesn't allow for you to, have a normal social meal with friends or go to a birthday or go to have a family dinner or anything like that. Very low in protein. So, we are risking metabolic muscle loss. And ultimately, again, the moment you go back to eating the way that you were before, the weight is all just going to go back on. And if you've lost muscle in this process, depending on how long you kind of kept this torture session up, you may actually gain more weight. And we do sometimes see that. And the other one, of course, that is like super popular right now that I am vehemently against is this kind of animal carnivore diet. I think that there are very few things in the nutrition world that we are able to agree on when it comes to the nutrition science. Things are always changing. It's conflicting, it's confusing, and I acknowledge how difficult that is for the layperson. But one thing that I think we should all be able to agree on is that fruits and vegetables are good for your health. So don't cut them out. Don't replace, your produce with just more red meat, which we have ample evidence is going to actually have, long-term health detriment. So we really want to keep our eyes on that. That's a fad. Please do not do that.
I've seen that one a lot, and I see like the beef tallow being used a lot when people are cooking their eggs and things like that. So you're kind of more on the no, don't do that too
Everything
much.
in moderation. I mean, I'm not against incorporating animal products, but the evidence is overwhelmingly clear that we should be eating more plant-based protein and less animal-based proteins, not the other way around.
And so instead of following these fad diets or a more trendy goal, what would you say is something more attainable and sustainable that people can do?
Well, variety is the spice of life, and we know that getting in a varied diet is so important for overall diet quality. Not to mention, it kind of gets you out of that cooking rut, makes you less likely to order in. Therefore, you're better able to control the quality and quantity of the food that you consume. There's so many benefits here. Also, like head to bed an hour earlier than usual. And it's wintertime. We should be enjoying our sleep more than ever right now. So this is a great time to try to incorporate more better sleep hygiene into your routine, which means powering off, turning off those electronics before bed, keeping your room nice and dark, and getting out of the habit of having the screen in your face until the moment you close your eyes. Very, very important for overall health, for weight management. The benefits are endless. And another one that I think is really important is to try to incorporate at least one meatless meal or snack a day. So like I said before, despite what the carnivore charlatans may suggest, we actually want to be incorporating more plant-based protein, more fruits and vegetables. This is actually where we're lacking. We need more fiber in our diet, generally speaking. And so just kind of making a little mental note that, hey, I'm gonna have a completely meatless lunch today, or I'm gonna have a meatless dinner tomorrow. And just learning how to incorporate more plants into your diet.
Yeah. And those sound so simple, like sleep. And it's something we don't often prioritize. So goals, they really don't have to be overly ambitious to be meaningful. And also, it doesn't have to be done in January. That's what I think. I know we're having this conversation now near the end of the month, but why does it have to be January? It could be at any point in your life. Make a change if you feel like it.
Absolutely.
So what advice would you give to someone who's sort of feeling discouraged by not meeting their goals? And how can we help them shift their perspective and sort of reframe their approach for better long-term success?
Yeah, I think not reaching whatever arbitrary goal you've set for yourself, January 1, doesn't mean that you failed, right? It means that we are human. And sometimes, in fact, oftentimes, especially in this kind of new year, new you time of year, our goals maybe don't align with what we truly need. So this may actually be a really good reminder that you need to take it slower, or that your goal may actually not be what's best for your body or your life. So quitting in a lot of ways can actually be an act of self-care. And if you realize that a resolution isn't serving you, pivoting or letting it go altogether is actually a sign of growth, not failure. So I think instead of beating ourselves up about these things, we can ask ourselves, okay, what have I learned from this experience? And how can I adjust my approach moving forward? And again, for a lot of people, this means having more empathy for ourselves about the process or the journey. It also might mean taking these like smaller steps and like having these like little bite-sized goals instead of this like lofty goal that you're gonna lose 20 pounds. And therefore you can kind of evaluate how you feel or how that goal is serving you at each step of the way, rather than, assuming that you need to change the world overnight.
Yeah, I like that. That's a great way for people to sort of, realize it's not the be all and end all. And just to wrap things up, I have to ask you, because I've watched so many of your TikTok videos and your YouTube videos, and I love watching you break down, social media influencers' diet plans and the types of recipes people make online. And you sort of just break them down for people to understand if they are good for you and if they are not, and why they're good for you and why they are not. So can you tell me what the most absurd online video is that you've seen lately?
Oh my God. There's so many. I mean, one that particularly irks me at this moment is like, creating all these like drink cocktails and calling them like faux Zempic, like a Ozempic dupe. Especially because they're just so outrageous, like making oat or rice water with some lemon juice and saying, "Oh yes, this is going to melt the fat right off of you." Like, talk about dishonest. Like, there's, and I know everybody is, wanting to lose weight as quickly as you would on a powerful anti-obesity agent like Ozempic. But the reality is that we don't have any kinds of foods that are going to be able to mimic the capabilities of medications at this point. Not to mention a lot of the actual recipes that they're sharing are just like starch water. I'm like, of all the things, like how about a protein shake? Like that might help, but this, no. So I do find a lot of those recommendations are quite outrageous as it pertains to trying to like hack your way into getting Ozempic-like results.
That's unfortunately the problem that's with social media, is anybody can get out there and say, try this diet or eat this food and you'll see results. And unfortunately, it's not always true.
Exactly. The power of the testimonial is it's mind-blowing. And we are much more likely to believe, a random person on the internet saying, I did this and this is what happened, you should do it too, than to listen to the greater body of evidence or actual experts in the field and actual practitioners and their doctors and their dietitians. And it is a very difficult time to be a science communicator right now.
Oh, I absolutely believe it. Thank you for doing the videos that you do, because it really does break it down and gives people a better understanding. So it appears you'll just consistently be working at this. I don't think it's going away ever. You will never retire. This is your life's work. Huge thanks to Abbey Sharp for all her insights. You can listen to Abbey on her own podcast, Bite Back with Abbey Sharp, or find out more about her at abbeyskitchen.com. Here at The Big Story, we value your feedback. You can comment on this or any other episode by emailing us at hello@thebigstorypodcast.ca. You can find us on the Seeker app or on all your favorite podcast players. Please rate, review, follow, and share. I'm Eva Fragiskatos. Thanks for listening.